Hey there, everybody. This is Kristin from Teaching Balance, and I am here with you with this week's mindfulness meditation practice. And this is our final week in the month with the theme of self-advocacy. And because it's the final week, I was feeling a little inspired to come at it from an angle that's more about, a different way of thinking about the value of self-advocacy. So certainly there's no surprise to the fact that self-advocacy, a big part of that is about healthy boundaries. And thankfully we've gotten so much more conversation in the world, or certainly in our culture, regarding healthy boundaries. And we now even people are familiar with the term gaslighting, and I mean all of these things. It's so interesting. And I think it's so valuable that we're having so many more conversations about mental health and wellness and all of that kind of thing. Now, healthy boundaries can take a few different forms. We've explored that in a multitude of practices and videos here, but certainly it can be about articulating your needs to people and asking from them what it is that you need in some capacity. It could be frequency of communication or mode of communication. It could be asking for support regarding tasks. It could be a boundary with someone who just is so draining to you, like a person who's really needy and doesn't take any responsibility for their own growth. I mean, the list goes on and on. And then there's also our own boundaries within ourselves, perhaps a boundary between us and our technology, like cell phones, and us and how we care for our bodies and all of that sort of thing. Now, having established what that can look like and all the various ways it can be, I know that you understand intellectually why it's important to self-advocate and to have those healthy boundaries for yourself, because it is good for you, helps you to maintain your health, to be able to sustainably do your work and function. But the angle that I want to come at it from today and this week is, instead of making it about you, making self-advocacy and the practice of it to be about others. And what I mean by that is modeling. Now, most of you are educators, so you're familiar with this concept of how we model certain behaviors and the value of that, and that people, children, kids, teens, whatever, learn from our example. It's kind of like, you might say, do as I say, not as I do. But when we ourselves make choices to be an example and to model certain behaviors, there's a really deep resonance for that with, of course, the young people in our lives, but even partners, peers, everyone. So that's really the thing I would like to offer you regarding your invitation for this week, which is, when you're making some choices regarding advocating for yourself, and perhaps even more specifically, establishing and or maintaining healthy boundaries, allowing that to be something that you do not only for yourself, but also as an important way of modeling that healthy behavior to others. And so I just think it's a really valuable reframing that for some people who, for whatever reason, still might resist self-advocacy and self-care and all the things, when it's framed as being a really valuable choice to model this behavior for others, sometimes that just rings a bell for people that other things don't. Now, if you're thinking, oh, trust me, I got this, I see the value of it, that's awesome. What I would even invite you to do is think of perhaps some students, colleagues, family members, friends, those people in your life who perhaps aren't as open to self-advocacy and perhaps aren't as adept at establishing healthy boundaries. And if it feels right and you have the opportunity to, connect with them and converse with them, perhaps even sharing this way of framing it with them. And that might even have a more ripple effect on things in a very positive way. So let's go ahead and wrap up this final week of self-advocacy with a practice. I'm going to start my timer. And of course, I know you know this, but we are modeling healthy behavior when we make the choice to carve out this time. And even if it's not 10 minutes, if it's just 5 or just 2, keeping your practice going in whatever way it's possible for you to do so is a very powerful way of modeling self-care, and also, of course, is useful for us to be more skillful in the way that we interact and respond to people in the world. You know the drill, starting with some of those long, slow, deep breaths. I also really like rolling my shoulders back. I've been feeling a real satisfaction to that lately. So if that's appealing to you, that's an invitation that also helps to open up the chest slightly, helps to straighten the posture, which is great for that deeper breathing. And when I roll my shoulders back, I actually find that I hold my hands differently. I interlace them a lot of times as opposed to just resting my palms on my thighs. But of course, you find the posture that feels best for you in this moment. I think I'd like to keep this practice a little lighter, a little quieter. I'm just going to pop in from time to time just to check in and bring you back if that would be helpful. So let's sit in silence together for a while. noticing where the mind is now. And if it's wandered into thought, remembering that's not a problem. You just notice that thought. If you care to, you can label it with some specificity like planning or remembering or worrying. And then you don't push the thought away. There's a real subtle difference here. Instead of pushing the thought away or trying to put on little blinders, you really give it your full attention. Then you just pivot your focus or your awareness back to wherever we've decided to rest it, either on the breath or the body or sounds, and to come back to that resting point. I really suggest that you think of it as a place of rest, an oasis, where we take a break from following our thoughts. And they'll pull us away again and again. But then we come back to this resting place of gently resting our attention on the present moment. So let's come back and do it again with a fresh start each time. As you know, I often like to kind of play with the last few moments of our sit. So if that's not appealing, you just do whatever you're doing. But in the minute or so that remains, I always like to kind of mess around and see if I can hold my focus without it getting pulled away until we hear the bell. So if you want to give that a try with me, let's see how it goes. Last minute or so. So there you have it, a big finish to Self-Advocacy Month. I hope you found it to be helpful and of value, particularly at this time as we're kind of really getting back into the full swing of back to school. And as always, thank you so much for taking this time for yourself and for allowing me to accompany you on this journey. I will see you next week. Take care.